Hello, this is Photography Gamer, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm reviewing Dying Light 2 Stay Human for the Xbox Series S. The game is also available on the PlayStation and PC. Dying Light 2 Stay Human is an open world parkour adventure game developed by Techland. You play as Aiden, a character searching for his sister in the city of Villador. The game can be played solo or online in cooperative modes. So what is it like to play? Well, Dying Light is a parkour experience. If you don't know what that means, it basically is the ability to free run, climb and jump from rooftop to rooftop. It's a very smooth and fluid system that makes level traversal an absolute delight. That is, once you've leveled up your skill tree enough. But at first you're stuck with fairly basic moves. The game starts with the standard 3-hour tutorial prologue that no one really wanted. During this time, the game introduces each control element and core systems at play in the game world. Guns are not the order of the day, although you can get bows later on, but for the most part you'll be looting and scavenging to find any melee weapon to take down the hordes of zombies. However, whereas melee was a strong part of Dying Light 1, in Dying Light 2, some of the collision detection felt a little bit off, and also the audio. It didn't feel as punchy, and just generally the melee combat felt a little bit underwhelming compared to the first game. As with parkour, you can level up your combat skills with such things as perfect parries, or attack from above, but again, the systems all felt a little bit clumsy. Weapons degrade over time, but from my 30-hour playthrough, there wasn't any sort of in-game system tutorial to show you how to repair them, at least none that I could find. But it does appear that certain weapons that have mod slots can be repaired, although again, there wasn't any clear indication of how you do that in the game. If there's a mod slot, you can change things like the tip, the shaft, the grip and charms of that weapon, all to add different abilities. For example, you could add a fire attack to an axe. Now, melee is something synonymous with Dying Light, but I can't help but feel, more ranged weapons would have really added some value to the game, because melee's great until it gets a bit tedious and you just would love to have a bit of a scoped rifle. Now, I don't know if there are guns in the game. I didn't find any. I didn't have any through my entire playthrough of the core narrative, but maybe they're out there, maybe they're not, who knows. The more you complete combat or parkour activities, the more you level up, but to unlock more elements in your skill tree, you need to find things called inhibitors. These add more health or stamina to your character, and stamina is one of the key attributes, as once it runs out, you are done for. So what about the game world of Villador? Well, it's a large city space broken into two main zones, the Old Town and the city centre. The action begins in Old Town and you'll be stuck here for about the first 10 hours or so, which I have to say was a real struggle. Each area is broken into zones, with each zone being managed by two groups, the Peacekeepers or other survivors. Each area has a key facility within it that needs to be reactivated, like a power station or a water supply. Now this is where the choices come into play. You have to decide which group you want to align with, and this results in new environmental elements that will help you on your adventure. But these choices don't have as big an impact on the game world as they would have let you believe in the early promo for Dying Light 2. I would also say, choices aside, it's a very similar game structurally to Dying Light 1. There are safe zones where you can pick up quests, buy, sell or visit the craftsmasters to upgrade your blueprints. But as I said, after 10 hours or so, I ended up in the city centre. Now this for me was where I really started to enjoy the game. It's a vast and highly vertical part of the map that adds new features like a paraglider to help you get around in style. Fast travel is featured if you're worried about these overly long travel sections, but even this requires a quite long-winded mission to activate. Was that really necessary? Does it add value? Probably not. The other main feature of the city, and in Dying Light generally, is the day and night cycle. For new players to the series, when the light dies and the night arrives, the city transforms into a more dangerous environment. Or at least, that was the theory in Dying Light 1. More zombies hit the streets, different zombie types appear, and epic chases will keep you on your toes as you fight to make it to the safe zone. Safe zones are designated by UV light, which keeps the infected at bay. But the nights, I'm sad to say, are a poor imitation of the terrifying nights in Dying Light 1. Here, I can't say exploring at night ever felt really dangerous or scary. Yes, there's more zombies around, but it was so easy to get away from them, it left me feeling a sense of disappointment. Also, with the nights being easier, it makes the game a lot easier too, because leveling up is now a complete doddle. As you complete parkour or combat abilities at night, you get boosted level progression. It's a shame, as the whole series, Dying Light, is about light dying and the game turning from a parkour adventure to a survival horror game as you explore the darkness. Also, where are all the volatile zombies? The volatiles, they're these very super dangerous zombies that came out at night and would literally kill you with one hit. But in this version, there's hardly any of them that I encountered in general. I'm not saying there's none in here, but it was pretty disappointing that the nights have been nerfed so much, because without a dangerous night, what is there left other than parkour? Well, there are missions. I'd also lay quite a lot of criticism at the missions themselves. I can't say there were many that stood out or were memorable at all. One or two in the whole game perhaps, but aside from that, it's all pretty basic fetch quest, long trek from A to B, then average dialogue, have a fight, done, etc. I would say though that once you hit the city centre, it does get better, with a more interesting location to explore, and one or two new characters introduced that really do keep you invested to a degree. Okay, let's talk about the story. At the start, you're told Aiden is looking for his sister, but for most of the game he barely mentions her at all, and it all felt like a bit of a sideshow as a core narrative. I would say most of the characters in the old town left a lot to be desired, and it was only the introduction of Lawan, played by Rosario Dawson, that kept me interested.
You sound scared.
Of course I'm scared, Aiden.
Oh, I didn't know you cared.
Fuck you.
Lawan and Aiden have a decent chemistry, even though Aiden is a complete dullard. Don't get me wrong, Lawan is a piece of work too, but at least she has something about her, as opposed to the majority of the other characters who felt inconsequential.
Well, look what the cat dragged in. Oh, don't look all butthurt. Hell, I want to thank the cat, because you look just like the kind of guy who could help me out.
No luck yet.
It's not about luck, kid, but about character.
Like yours?
Ballsy.
Storytelling in Dying Light 2 is pretty poor on the whole. It all felt like a little bit pointless and lacking anything to really engage you, to get you interested in what you're actually doing. Aiden doesn't really help with his tiresome dialogue and lack of charisma.
Where did you learn to fight like that?
Where? On the road? As a pilgrim? I had no other choice.
On the road?
Where's Sophie? Hey, why weren't you on the mission? Friends could have used you. Okay.
It has to be one of the least interesting and unoriginal stories that I've ever experienced in a AAA game. Now, the story tells you you've got lots of choices to make. But have you? Have you really? Well, you can decide which group you align with, what facilities to give to who, but aside from that, most of your choices don't really have a massive impact on proceedings. Like, you can betray someone and then 5 minutes later, they don't even reference it. What is that about? The two factions are both as unlikable as each other, and you're left thinking, what's the point in choosing one or the other, as you pretty much end up with the same outcome on the whole. I'd say Techland need to spend more money on the writing talent. Good writing talent is not cheap, but you get what you pay for. Put your hand in your pocket and you might just have something that would rival the pinnacle of game writing like The Last of Us. Or do it on the cheap and you get this sort of low-level stuff. It's a story you've seen 100 times before and done better in every way. Also, one little gripe, I don't think having cutscenes in first person really works. There's a reason that there are cinematographers in the world. It helps portray the characters and the narrative in a compelling way. Here, first person really doesn't do that at all. Okay, right, what about the zombies, the human enemies, the enemy variety? Is it any good? Well, most of the enemies you encounter felt pretty samey from the general zombies or the general raiders. It's all much of a muchness. Yes, there are a few special enemies, but again, they are few and far between. And I don't think the AI is very good either. Generally, they just walk straight towards you, or they'll do this very sort of linear pattern of movement. Very poor AI. I also got to mention the boss fights in this game. What on earth are they about? I mean, maybe I've played too much Horizon Forbidden West or Elden Ring, but really, Dying Light 2's boss fights are quite frankly, they're just laughable. Like when you compare them to other games, it's like, is this actually a boss fight or is this just a fight? I couldn't really make it out sometimes. Finally, on gameplay, I would say the game felt a bit bloated with busy work, most of which wasn't very interesting or compelling to play through. It took me 30 hours to finish, but I'd say that's probably 10 hours too much. They say it takes 500 hours to do the game 100%, but I seriously doubt anyone is actually going to do that. Also, it's a game that goes from the sublime to the ridiculous in minutes. Like, you can have some exciting parkour and melee combat, then a terrible cutscene with laughable characters followed by a horrendous boss fight. But that does kind of sum up the game. Very up and down, can be great, can be awful. Graphically, the game world is a stunning creation with complex and well thought out structures. The zombies and human enemies look okay too, but I can't say the costume design was that impressive. Also, there is a photo mode. If you'd like a deep dive into that, click on the link in the description or at the end of the video. What about sound? Well, music wise, it's a pretty strange experience. Like most of the tracks, they didn't really feel like they were created specifically for what they're used for. It's like they were just added without real due care or just purchased and put in as placeholders. Voice acting wise, not good at all, but it's hard to know who to criticise. The voice actors, the person who directed the voice actors, or the script writers. All have some responsibility, but barring 3 or 4 characters, the vast majority of the voice work is childish and dumb computer game fare. However, the ambient sound effects are really truly wonderful. Like, you'll often enter a building and hear screams, shouts, zombies banging on the wall, and it all just really freaks you out, especially at night. Okay, the good and the bad points. What are the good points? Well, the parkour system is absolute perfection. Villedor is a wonderful and complex city to explore. The melee weapons are pretty cool, and Lawan saves the narrative just as it almost killed itself. What are the bad points? There is no overarching narrative of any quality. The knights are no longer dangerous or scary. The characters are bland and uninteresting. Aiden is the worst protagonist I've ever encountered.
So, have you slept with anyone in Villedor?
No.
Melee becomes tiresome and the game really does need some more ranged weapons. Most of the main or side activities are instantly forgettable and it's, in general, a bit of a downgrade from Dying Light 1. So, what is the verdict? Dying Light 2 Stay Human is a sequel that does nothing to address the previous game's shortcomings. In fact, it takes a large step backwards in many areas, from the disappointing melee combat, the lackluster story, or the nighttime sections that have been nerfed. The problem with Dying Light 2, like most AAA games these days, is it sets you loose in a massive open world with lots of busy work and travelling from A to B. But all these things you have to do. They're all pointless unless the characters and story are compelling. Sadly, the main character is dire, the supporting cast are laughable, with only 1 or 2 exceptions. So you're left grinding your way through a massive game with endless tasks, but you'll ask yourself, why? Why am I here? To save my sister? Or just tick all the boxes until I forget why I'm actually here? Not good. Saying that, I did start to enjoy it once I entered the city centre, but the game is way too much of a slow starter, and its ending is also pretty underwhelming. It's not a complete disaster, but it's definitely a backward step from the first game in terms of the story, the world, the core mechanics, the combat. It's the kind of game you'll complete late one night, then you'll go to bed, wake up in the morning and you will have forgotten everything about it. It just passes you by. It's fun while it lasts to a degree, but it's not one that will live long in the memory. Like in 10 years from now, no one is going to say, oh wow, do you remember Aiden in Dying Light 2 in that amazing story? No one will say that. No one who's sane will say that because it will not be remembered for that. For the parkour, yes, and for the large open city to explore with friends, yes, but not much else, I'm afraid. So pretty average stuff. I wouldn't recommend it unless you're a fan of the first game, then you will probably enjoy parts of it, but it's hard for me to truly recommend it as it's got lots of problems. So my score for Dying Light 2 Stay Human is 6.5 out of 10. Okay, that's the review. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like, please subscribe, or become a Patreon. This is Photography Gamer signing off. Thank you.